Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Unstuck. Those of you who are new with us this week, this is it's a program. I don't know what you'd call it, program, interview, conversation that in various forms I've been running for over a decade. And really, it's the current incarnation of it is really to have conversations with folks about the intersection of human and digital technology as we move further and further along into the 21st century. And really kind of look at the human journey of people who are working at the intersection of those two things. So that's all the information I'm going to give you. There's lots of these available online if you get curious and want to look at others. But today we have with us Jeffrey Fleurantin.
That's right.
And yeah, how you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone. Doing pretty good.
So I treat these things as a conversation, right, versus an interview. And so we kind of dive in somewhere and then see where it takes us. And where I'd love to dive in with you is like really transactional. Last time we talked, you were considering a move out west. Yeah. Are you still here? Are you moving?
Yeah. So
Did you move?
I'm still here in Connecticut. I'm about to depart in 3 weeks, and super excited on this next chapter of my life. So yeah, I'm ready to go, and I'm trying to finish a little stuff I have to finish here, but I'm 3 weeks away.
That's amazing. Now remind me, NorCal, Southern California, where are you headed?
Northern California, yeah.
Okay.
Northern California, and I will be working for Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Lawrence, California. Well, maybe about an hour from San Francisco.
South, yeah. Southwest or south northeast?
I think Southwest. I'm still learning the layout a little bit, so I'm brand new. So
probably southeast. Actually, no, I'm thinking about Southwest would be the middle of the Pacific. That's awesome. So similar role. What are you going to be doing out there?
I will be a system engineer, similar role from the ones I've been doing in the past. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. So now, actually, one other question, and then I want to go somewhere with that. Actually, is this your first time living out west?
This is actually my second time. The first time I lived out west, for my last job, I was doing a contract job for Blue Origins in Seattle, Washington, and that was pretty awesome as well. Yeah. And it's very different, when you first go out there. It's from East Coast. I've lived in East Coast my whole life, born in Boston, but there's a whole West Coast vibe that's totally different from the East Coast. I don't know how to explain it. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time on the West Coast. Never lived there, but spent tons of time for client work and traveling. And so this is the first kind of real question for you then, because we want to explore broadly this kind of notion of we're here with the nonprofit with DAE to kind of create access, but where we started talking was, before you even get to access, you got to get to awareness. Mm-hmm. So from your experience out west versus here, what's the difference in terms of mindset around tech careers?
I think from here from out there, it's more well known what the big tech companies are and what those opportunities are, and mm-hmm. Even in the area I went to, it had a Silicon Valley type of feel. There's like companies around other companies. They create their own like ecosystem, so to say. So a lot of the opportunities and the community service and just the giving back and just the awareness of what's out there is more, I would say, more well known. Where kind of like in the East, things are a little scattered around, and it's kind of hard to know what you should know, if you know what I mean.
Right. Listen, on one level, it's like an obvious thing to say, Northern California, Silicon Valley, massive tech hub. And so, of course, they're more exposed to and aware of tech. But the reality is, I think that it's more than just that the companies are out there. There is there's a dual thing, there's a kind of inherent conservatism to the East Coast that has new technologies, new approaches, be something that's not kind of baked into our awareness to kind of jump on. We are not the early adopter members of the American family, I think, in many ways. Yeah. But yeah, and then what you said about us being kind of fragmented a little bit. We don't have a lot of centers of gravity other than Boston and New York. Mm-hmm. I think the other big thing is our DNA, right? So, I mean, so much of East Coast DNA is manufacturing,
Right,
and finance and kind of old school insurance in Connecticut, old school industry, right?
and medical too.
Medical.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
medical
I
too.
mean, so those are old industries, and have a certain gravity to them, even though they're gone. Like manufacturing is coming back now, advanced manufacturing, but it's still like the ghosts of manufacturing still haunt the Valley area here in Connecticut. So tell me then, so you were, or maybe still are, since you're still 3 weeks in, 3 weeks left rather, with NSBE here in the East Coast, the National Society of Black Engineers. Um, I'm curious because again, our mission here is to really again open up access, underserved communities across a variety of underserved communities, right? But thinking about the NSBE charter. Um, what have you learned kind of on the East Coast out here that are barriers to people of color to even getting access? Like, so if it's not baked into the culture, if we're an old school culture, if we're a conservative culture, we're old industry culture, how do people, who are kind of living in our cities even get exposure?
Yeah, I think that's why organizations like NSBE is so important, because personally for me, NSBE has taught me a lot of what I should know. Going to NSBE usually holds conferences and conventions to get people together, to get people aware of what the opportunities are there, because it's very important. A lot of us, I remember growing up, I didn't know a lot of things. You know, Part of engineering, I didn't grow up learning a lot of things that I should have known until I got to NSBE, and I started seeing the career opportunities, seeing the opportunities to be in leadership, the opportunities to grow yourself, the opportunities to how to carry yourself, the opportunities how to, if you're interested in, for example, a special interest group, the opportunities to find those, or networking. A lot of those things, you don't really know until you find something like NSBE, and there's others as well that kind of molds you into the leader, the engineer, the professional you're supposed to eventually be, coming out of school. So I think definitely from a school perspective and a professional perspective and a career perspective, it's very important to find, whether it's someone who just knows and is just feeding you this information, or an organization that has a chapter like NSBE.
Right.
There's SWE, and there's so many others that are kind of there to help guide, and especially your organization as well, to kind of help guide and let individuals know, like, hey, there are options out there, and here what they are. So
Yeah, cool. So all right. So then let's kind of track your journey. So you're an East Coast guy originally. How did you even get into tech? Was this like some version of this, an interest early on, and then
yeah,
you got some guy?
definitely for me, an interest early on. I always loved math. That's another big thing. A lot of people, if you love math, you most likely end up in tech. But I love math, and I loved math and robots. Robots were, and it's funny, I'm not even in the field for robots, but for some reason I had this weird fascination for robots. So when it came time to, pick my major, those were some of the things I was looking at, and I also loved airplanes as well, aerospace. So keeping those things in mind, that was really what influenced me to mechanical engineering, to getting a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. But at the time in high school, I wasn't in contact with NSBE throughout my time in high school. So if it wasn't for some of those key pointers that I just mentioned, I may have not possibly gone into engineering or a STEM field. But because I love math, I love robots, I love airplanes, I figured that was the best avenue for me to pursue. The things that really shaped my decision to go into a STEM field were some of the things I was fascinated about, but I think having organizations and opportunities that kind of gear someone to, uh, you know, what you should know is very important, right? Those STEM fields, it's very important, the type of awareness and projects and opportunities that are needed to kind of inspire young kids, young students, to reach out and go to the unknown, right? To pick the road less traveled.
Yeah.
It was don't get me wrong, um, going to school to get that engineering degree was a lot of work, and that's something you don't know. You don't know how much library time you'll be needing to do
Right. Right.
in
Right.
order to get some of those things. You don't know what you'll have to sacrifice until
Right.
you get in there, and then you're like, oh, okay, if I don't do this, you don't get that outcome. So let me just do this. Let me do what I need to do to
Yeah.
succeed, and it kind of pushes yourself as well. And that's definitely something that happened to me. I definitely learned and grow. Like, okay, if I want to be an engineer, I gotta all these individuals who's going to the library and putting in those hours, I got to do the same as well.
Right. So, all right. So I'm a young person. I'm kind of, sophomore, junior, maybe senior in high school, or I'm the parent of a young person right now here in New Haven in one of our public high schools, right? Where should I be focusing? Like, where should I make sure my kid or I start focusing? So you said math, but what else should I be doing to kind of prepare myself, not even for the career, but for the kind of training I need for the career?
Definitely math is important. Algebra is probably one of the most fundamental things. If you're in the science field, you will see algebra and you have to understand. So if there's anything you can do to help your kid get better at algebra, that's like a plus.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, a lot of students don't stay in these type of fields just because of the math portion. So making sure that math portion is squared away is awesome. Then I also think it's important to get exposure to like science related things, science related opportunities, science related environments, if that is the goal. Because getting exposed to certain things like robots, robot kits, or some of the programs that even Nesby has done with Girls Who Code. Those things are
Right.
important early on. And I'm sure you've done so many programs as well. Like those things that I got introduced to computer programming. This is a funny story. I got introduced to computer programming really late, and I loved it. But I was already too advanced, too far in my mechanical engineering program to stop when I'm doing it. So I was going to continue with the mechanical engineering program. But if I got involved with computer programming and understood what it was, I didn't even know. I went to college and I didn't even know what computer programming was. I didn't understand. It was something, what you're supposed to know, but you don't know. And I didn't know in high school what that programming aspect was. And when I got to college, I took a class and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, and some of those things can influence your kid's trajectory,
Yeah.
So it's very important to get them exposure. Math, yes. It's hard to get physics, for those engineers, future engineers, it's kind of hard to get that physics foundation early on, but physics is another aspect of, from my experience, introducing them to physics as soon as possible is important, because it took me a whole semester to grasp the idea of physics. I don't know why. It was new, and it was just introduced to me. It's like thrown at me. Here's what physics is.
Right.
Force equals mass times acceleration. And for me, I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
So I can't see a force on the table. Now I can. But before, I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. There's a force, there's a result. So you get the point.
Right.
Getting exposure early on to some of those critical things is important. And it could apply to anything, really. Nursing, all those, programming. It really doesn't matter. And getting them exposure to a variety of things could be helpful as well. Help them understand that there's something out there. There's other things out there that you can do. And they can take you places you never thought.
Yeah. For me, it's sort of a language issue, right? So for computer science, math isn't necessarily critical actually, right? If you go to machine learning, absolutely, oh my God, it's crazy math, right? But what's critical is, and I think you're alluding to when you talk about algebra, it's the language of math. It's not so much that you necessarily are good at math per se, or that you love it, but the language of math, and particularly algebra, the ability to structure a formula, right?
Yeah.
Like just that type of thinking applies in other areas. I think same thing with physics, same thing with all these other, it's a language that you can do certain things in, but more importantly, it's a language to think in that is transferable to other places,
Yes.
So all right. So let's reel back to, because so you said you're a mechanical engineer. Obviously, you're working at Lawrence Livermore. My father actually is he came over as an immigrant, and he did, I think, 4 master's degrees, not because he wanted a bunch of master's degrees. It was a way to stay in the country, right? It was just keep getting student visas, right?
Yep.
So, but he worked his whole life in engineering. He's a mechanical engineer.
So why are you not a mechanical engineer?
So, dude, I'll tell you the story. All right. So this is a joke I tell for decades, and it's true. It's one of those things that's like true, but it's funny. It sounds like a joke. So my generation is the last generation of Indian men this is true for, I think. But everybody in my generation who's male, 49% became doctors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 49% became engineers of some type. And then the radical, crazy, rebellious 2% became PhD chemists. That was like open rebellion. You're going to go do a PhD in chemistry or physics. Like, it was, doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer. I studied music, Chinese philosophy, but I did a minor in electrical engineering just to shut my mother up. Just so she could say that, no, he's studying engineering. No, he's studying engineering. It's okay. So, I did like 5 classes in electrical engineering just to have that minor.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's assume nobody, like, I know just because my father was a mechanical engineer, right? So tell our audience, what is mechanical engineering? How's it different from other engineering? Like, it's totally different from software engineering and electrical engineering. So what is it? What do you guys focus on?
So I think the best way to describe it is mechanical engineering is usually engineering of moving parts, right? And dynamic parts too, moving parts, where civil engineering is more like things that aren't moving, things that are stationary. So if you think of like a bridge, if you think of like maybe a building, if you think of those large structures, those are more civil engineering because they're static, they're not moving.
Right.
Where mechanical engineering differs is, planes, mechanical, moving parts, a lot of gears, a lot of components that are moving to form a bigger unit. That's kind of how I would describe mechanical engineering, and it varies. There's so many different types of mechanical engineers, but there's so many different things to do within it as well. You could be a designer. You could be someone who uses software to create like anything from a cup, in a 3-dimensional aspect, and you can create drawings from that, or prototype a part for a specific company and so forth. You can be in testing, which I got the opportunity to do a little testing in some of my other jobs as well. You could be in what else is there? It's just so many different things. You can do materials, right? You could be an expert in materials and selection, stuff like that. So definitely varies, but best way to define it would be think about mechanical moving parts.
Yeah, I love it. It's so simple and accessible, right? And we're talking about access here, right? It's if it's a physical object and it moves, mechanical engineers have something to say about it. Yeah. So again, I do think a lot about access, and particularly these days, we have. I have to rein myself in to not go on like a rant every time I get into this topic, but like we have a legitimately criminal approach to education in our cities, and the teachers are doing their best. It's not their fault. It's a systemic crime, but we look at how do we create access of awareness before we create access of opportunity. And so for computer scientists, it's like I can look for, is the kid into gaming? Like if they like to play games, okay, that's an access point to start drawing lines between that and computer science, right? So for mechanical engineering, if a young person is into cars, if they're into motorcycles, if they're into trucks, right? Now that for me becomes an access point to build awareness to say, okay, if you really are passionate about cars, let's find ways to open doors for you to start playing with the discipline, right?
Absolutely.
Do you have any
Yeah.
students doing that through NSBE or other kind of development programs with kids?
I see what you're saying. So you're saying like trying to give them a career path based off what they're kind of interested in, or show them some of the career paths. I don't know. I don't know if NSBE. I'm sure NSBE does it. I'm probably not familiar
Yeah.
with some of the programs, but I think it is important, right? It's that awareness is trying to open. It's almost like a what would you call it? Like, what's the best word? It's almost like a think, we're thinking workshop to help, individuals, to inspire individuals and kind of get them aware of what's out there and how one action of one path, in their school they choose could open so many different branches. So I think that is important, right?
Right.
Finding a way to just demonstrate that if I pick this, here's what I can be, here's what it could lead to, here's the opportunities and projects that I might be working on in the future in the
Yep.
real life application. So I think that is very important. And I don't know the best way to illustrate that, but yeah, if there's a way to like let these kids like see visually, especially visual, hey, if you click this button, you say you want to be a programmer, here's the
Right.
opportunities, here's how it maps out to your future, here's what to expect, here's some of the courses you might want to pick. And the funny thing is I ran away from physics, and I'm bringing physics
Right.
back. I ran away from physics because a lot of kids in high school were saying, oh, it's too hard, it's difficult. But I didn't realize at the time physics was a requirement in my program in engineering. So you can't
There
always run
you
away
go.
from certain things. So little side story.
Yeah. You can run, but you can't hide from physics.
No.
Yeah. So, all right. Um, kind of, I love the simple kind of a description of mechanical engineering of physical objects that move, right? So at Lawrence Livermore, what are you specifically focused on? What are you working on?
So somewhere along my career path, I went into system engineering, and
Okay.
system engineering is really, I wouldn't say it's mechanical, but it's like general a little bit, but it's really the making sure that the customer requirements are met, right? So you have a project or someone says, hey, Jeff, I want you to build, for example, a helicopter. I used to work at a helicopter company.
Right.
Here are my requirements. Well, system engineers have to make sure, well, those requirements are valid. You might say, here, these are my requirements, but we got to make sure those are feasible, right? Those
Right.
are achievable. Those can be measured, can
Sure.
be verified,
Yep.
validated, you know, if I and also making sure that those requirements can be they're always flowed back up to the customer requirements. So there's different levels of requirements, but if, for example, if someone says this object must weigh a certain amount of pounds, we need to make sure that along the way it remained consistent and we could verify that that is true. So that's kind of what
Yep.
a system engineer kind of does on a daily day basis, making sure that creating those requirements, improving them, and using the team and the experts to make sure that the requirements are consistent and met and can be verified and validated. So
Okay.
that is kind of what I'm working on right now, helping the team with various requirements. Um, if you may not know, but Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, you know, uh, manages the nation's stockpile of nuclear weapons. So my
Right.
job is to make sure that, as a system engineer, the requirements are met for those weapons and packages.
Yeah. Just kind of a low responsibility job. I got it.
The funniest thing is when I got into system engineering from school, and I always thought, I have to be mechanical engineer, I have to be hands on, I just have to be, right.
Right.
That's all the cool thing, right, to do the design work as an intern. But the job that I got into was system engineer as an intern. It's
Right.
sometimes it's the hand that you're dealt. But what happened was I actually grew to love it because I was in it for so long, and it was the you could say the art that I knew the best, and I was good at it. So um that opportunity is the reason why I was able to go and travel to Seattle, Washington, and work for Blue Origin, who helps create help send people to space, suborbital, help some people to space. That's their mission, to help some people.
Right.
And I was on that team because of system engineering. And then I got the opportunity to, help maintain the nation's stockpile of nuclear weapons because of system engineering, not because of mechanical engineering. You know what I mean? So
Interesting.
sometimes you might find an opportunity that no one else really likes, but you're really good at it, and it opens doors
Right.
for you that you never thought was possible.
Yeah. So sorry. So let's riff on that one, because one of the things we try to work on here is on the computer science side, like really providing our students with a as direct a possible realistic preview of, like, they know the technical part of what they're going to do because they're studying it and they're working projects, right? But the reality of organizational life for a software engineer, right, is something we try to really provide early training on, and then as they enter the workforce, kind of provide support for them, because it's a totally foreign environment,
Yeah.
I got to imagine the life of a mechanical engineer is totally different. So what's kind of organizational life like in the places that you've worked at?
From mechanical engineering perspective, I would say certain times expect to work long hours sometimes,
Yeah.
and there's certain commitments that are just unrealistic, and you have to meet those requirements, right? And I'm not just talking about system engineering, but almost like engineering a whole. For example, there was a time where I worked on government contract for helicopters, heavy lift helicopters for Germany, and I was a preliminary design engineer or preliminary engineer, and getting that proposal ready took months, and you're not responsible for the whole proposal. For example, you might be responsible for certain aspects and
Mhm.
talking to individuals. So to answer your question, talking to individuals who may have a deliverable for you in different stages of that proposal process is very important. Staying in contact, talking to, getting any informational or any packet you need to send to suppliers is very important
Mhm.
as well. Meeting your team's deadlines, because they set certain gates and certain reviews that we have to complete, that tries to structure a percentage of that project of completion, right? Making sure that you keep that flow, and you keep on track with some of those deliverables from, not just from the customer, but from internally, the company as well, to meet your end date is super important. So um, sometimes you just got to work a little. You're just got to work a little more than you would expect, and sometimes the work you're getting is you're meeting your goals. It's really about just meeting your goals, meeting the goals that you set as an organization, meeting the goals that you set to your customers, and using your team to achieve some of the unknowns, because there's a lot of unknowns in engineering, and almost every day you'll find unknowns and things that weren't supposed to happen that happens, and you got to figure out why and how, and you got to use your resources, which could be people, could be suppliers, could be other things, could be different strategies to improve efficiency for a team. You got to
Right.
use everything that you can to get the job done.
Interesting. Okay. So if I'm going into computer science, one of the things I got to really pay attention to is, well, a couple of things that are critical, that are maybe unique to computer science, right? And then, so I want to ask the same question of where you were, kind of what's unique that a person has to pay attention to early in their career. So what they have to pay attention to is, the half-life of my knowledge is so short, right? I mean, the nature of computer science, like, it is constantly evolving. And so I just have to be such an aggressive learner, because literally, 3 weeks from now, something I learned today could be outdated. So that's one thing, that just a skill, that if you're going to go into computer science, skill and mindset that you really have to pay attention to. The second is the dynamics of, I mean, listen, it's a broad spectrum. People work in computer science in insurance industry, and they work at Google, and those couldn't be further apart, right? So it's not completely homogenous, but in general, the nature of computer science work in terms of the kinds of people we develop, the kinds of jobs they go into, a sort of heavy project-based approach to work versus a job-based approach to work. You know, other professions, I won't say 9 to 5, but they can have a 9 to 5 perspective, or they can have a long-term kind of role expectation perspective. Versus for a software engineer, it's it's project and then next project and next project next. You know, it's almost like you're kind of a consultative life, right? You know. So those are two things. A, I got to get used to the fact that I have to constantly be aggressively learning because information, and technologies churn so quickly in my discipline. Second is I got to get used to constantly moving from project to project, potentially, right? What's it like in a hard engineering discipline, right? Like physical engineering.
Yeah.
What are some of the dynamics that somebody who studied it academically may not be ready for in the career?
It's not so much like you have to keep up with time with things changing so much, because a lot of times, especially in mechanical engineering jobs, you're building something that already exists, that existed for years, right? For a helicopter, boat, a plane, it doesn't really matter. You do have to here's how it differs and how it might change, right? You've been building a helicopter for years the same way, and one day a customer goes, hey, I like what you did on this helicopter platform, but I want A, B, and C as an addition. That's where the changes come, right? Because you have a template, you have a blueprint, a foundation, a green plan or green plane, your baseline, and then customers want to add this and take this out, or add this and add this. And the challenge is you have to see what's feasible, because to build a helicopter, you have weight limits, you have so many different limitations, and if you add more stuff in, performance goes down, right? If you keep adding more stuff, more weight, you can't meet some of the performances that your customer's looking for as well, because there's performance requirements and then there's nice to have, right? So those are the challenges that you have to balance, and when there's a discrepancy, you have to present options to your customer. I think that's the best way from like a mechanical engineering perspective to paint that picture. That's how you're really overcoming challenges and changing things and changing parts, because most of the time, from a mechanical engineering perspective, for some companies at least, you have an existing part and a customer comes by and says, hey, I want to add or remove this part, and that's really what you do. Or I want a helicopter that performs on this level. Then you got to find out, how to achieve that. If it's possible, you can use an existing platform, or do you have to create a whole new platform to meet your customer requirements? So that's kind of how mechanical engineering world really works. It's not so much of changing technologies, and don't get me wrong, technologies do change, but it takes time. I mean, it takes time, and it's minimal. Sometimes it's not as a major impact to your employees or to the employees.
Yep. Okay. So let's we're getting so heavy into the career and minutia of work. Let's shift gears. And I'm leading us into that, and I'm just realizing I usually try to mix it up a bit, but I'm getting into because it's such a foreign world for me.
Yeah.
So what are you going to miss about the East Coast?
What I'm going to miss about the East Coast?
Yeah.
Boston. I think just the vibe. I'll definitely I have my whole family out here. Yeah. I'm definitely going to miss just the city life, the vibe. I'm definitely moving to a more quiet, I would say, location.
Yeah.
So not so. I love being in the city. So I think I'll definitely miss the city life.
Yeah.
The people, the friends. Yeah. I know I could Skype them, but it's not the same. Just go hang out with buddies and stuff like that. So definitely some of that.
Just a social interaction in the city. I got it.
Social interaction. You can't mess with that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I hear you. And to kind of bring it back, I mean, ultimately for me, everything comes back to my students, right? So we kind of bring it back. It's another thing that we're kind of keyed in on is it's not even, I think I at this point know based on just experience of it so many times that actual education, actual human development really requires a community, that it is not an individual sport, that there needs to be kind of a support system around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was meant to be, individuals, everyone fend for themselves. I think it, growing a future leader, future professional takes a village.
Yeah.
And um, having that support system, especially it's hard for parents who haven't gone to college. It's like, how do you help your kid? How do you know what you're supposed to know? You know what I mean? So how are you going to help him when they're struggling with a certain
Yep.
aspect? So it's very important for parents as well to have a support system, to have that information going to them as
Right.
well as a kid. It can't just be the kid is getting all
Right.
the information and the parents has no clue how to help them decide their trajectory, right? Or help them, what things they should be doing to
Yeah.
help, with their career and their schooling and things like that. So I think it's also, educating the parents as well. Here's what the opportunities are out there, and here's how you can help your kid shape your kid's trajectory by what you introduce in their life,
Yep.
and
So,
and, and teachers as well, and almost across the board. What are we, you know from a perspective, are we preparing kids for their future? Are we doing some of that awareness to help shape and guide their trajectories? That's also important. It has to be an educational component as well. Like you said, it takes a village. It's not. It's everyone has to be on the same page, and
yep.
and I think it's important when the teacher, parent, and student are on the same page and understand um, the best possibilities for a specific student or kid. I think I think that's when you have success.
So tell me about Nesby and how that's been a useful community for you in your development.
Yeah, so Nesby, I mean, really kind of shaped my career a lot and my leadership. I started I forget how many. I've been in Nesby for way too long, but this is why, because it helped bring me to where I am today. And I first started like as a leader, in the leadership team, for my specific school and college, and
Right.
I've had so many different roles, from treasurer to president. But I think it's definitely shaped my career. And one of the most important things I remember early on was being amazed at how many um, students of color were at conferences with suits, and how many
Mm.
females there were and how many males there were. It was like going to some of those conferences were mind blowing. It's like, wow, all these people want to be engineers, really? Oh
Wow.
man, and then seeing how they you know held themselves to a higher standard. Like those things are important. Seeing what they're interested in and seeing how they networked. Seeing people who look like you in that professional manner, who's supercharged up to be an engineer, who's supercharged up to work for some of these companies, was really important for my career growth, because they gave me the confidence to know that, hey, if they can do it, I can definitely do it.
Yeah.
I'm not on this journey on my own. There's like a whole like demographic out there who's trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do, who looks like me, who struggles in the same classes that I do. So those things are, were definitely important in my career, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I got from Nesby was that light at the end of the tunnel. I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't just academics. It wasn't just, oh, you got to study, study, study. No, after you study, here are the opportunities. Here's what the picture is being painted into. You know, things like that was starting to shape out for me. And and I had friends as well who were part of Nesby, who were charged up as well. Every time we go to these conferences, it's like a you know, it's just a charge that we need to like, okay, this is what we're doing. It. Come on, let's continue. Let's continue working, or congratulating one of my friends when they do get a really good, you know, opportunity, internship, job, you know, like having that small community, us grow together and see and inspire and educate and let everyone know, hey, this is how your resume should look. Hey, this is how you should dress. Hey, talk to this individual if you're looking for an opportunity. Like we kind of build a family, a network, you know, along the way that was really crucial to help keep me, myself, and all my other friends, you know, in engineering. And I think that's what's important, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just hitting on. I talked about this last week in the interview I did, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Regardless, I don't know if you're familiar with Clubhouse, the new social media platform.
Oh no,
it's in beta right now. It's kind of invitation based. I've become a little bit of a Clubhouse addict. It's really phenomenal. It's voice only. It's phenomenal. I won't go into it, but I've been sitting on Clubhouse a lot in these various rooms, and there's a very large African American community on Clubhouse, and a very large tech community, and there's a handful of groups that are just spectacular, mostly grounded out west. There's one group called Black Men in STEM, and very senior people across all the big tech firms, as well as educators, and and I sit in just to listen and learn, and again, we have a commitment to Latinx and African American and LGBTQ plus and physically disabled. So it's one of the kind of commitments we have here. But I sit in and I try to listen, and the very first time I sat in the Black Men in STEM room, there's about 30 people on the stage, kind of talking. And one of them, really successful, I think he's at Microsoft, spends a lot of his time doing volunteer work and kind of recruiting in the cities in Northern California and Arizona for whatever reason. I think he has family there or something, whatever. But he was just so blunt. He said, listen, in a lot of these inner cities, the narrative is you got three paths out. You got the NBA, you got the NFL, and you got drugs.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, it's just harsh, but it's like he says, and I go in and so often the first question that a kid will ask me is, "What do you drive?" And he said, I started off kind of rejecting that question, being, "Oh, it's about more than that," and then I realized that how arrogant is that? This kid has a right to understand what's at the other end of the hard work I'm pointing him to.
Yeah.
He said, so I make sure I show up in a Beamer, I show up in a Benz, and when they ask, and they say, when they ask what you drive, I say, I show them my car keys, I say, this is what I drive. And oh, by the way, a hell of a lot more success, likelihood if you do the hard work of this, that you're going to be driving a Benz in 10 years than if you do the hard work of NBA, you're going to be driving a Benz in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And so just that and just the power of somebody to what you said. Like, I can't go to those. I have no right to go into those neighborhoods, right? But somebody who looks like you, who's kind of can point you to a path and have it and demystify it and say that listen, it's work. Like what you were saying earlier, it's work. It's not like just a simple thing. It is hard work, but it's a path, and you have a right to it. And you have every ability to do it. And I'm going to show you myself and 50 other people who look like us, who have been there. It's just so powerful, and it's so simple, and yet it's been missing.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail right. I mean, imagine. I knew so many of my friends were like, "Yo, I don't know if I want to stay in engineering." You know why? Why? Because we didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. When we started going to these, when we started putting ourselves in the right environment and seeing, this is how you carry yourself. This is how you overcome this challenge. This is how you network. This is how you build your network. This is how you grow. It started getting easier. Like, you know what? There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. I want to stay in there. And you know what? I found a path that talking to a specific individual, I found a new path, a new passion that I might want to get into as an engineer. Maybe I want to go into aerospace industry. Maybe I want to go to the automobile industry, And submerging yourself in those type of environments is so important to grow, I believe, because how else are you supposed to learn what you should have known? You know, you're not going to learn what you should have known by not talking to others, right? Communication is so important, and putting yourself in an environment where you can learn from others who might be one step ahead of you, two steps ahead of you, three stages ahead of you. Individuals who are doing things that you didn't even think existed, right?
Right.
Space Force, you know, someone said
Right.
Space Force, and there's people actually working in Space Force today. I
Yeah.
actually met someone, so I'm like, oh snap, that's cool. You know, you know, as funny as that sounds, you know, there's things out there that when you put yourself in the right community, and it could be anything, like making sure you're in those right, you know, organizations. Do some leadership in there so you can grow as a leader,
Right.
and making sure that you're in the right network. Build your network. The only way you can build your network is to you go out and meet people, right? So
Right.
you have to find those opportunities, because they really shape your life, and you'll find friends that, you know, will call you one day, hey, I have this opportunity, you know, are you interested? You know what, you know, sometimes that happens, and you didn't put yourself in the right community and build your network, you might not have met some of those people that would have taught you what you should have known, you know, or something that might inspire you later. So I will never forget. Let me tell you something. I have gone to probably like 11 national conventions since my time, since 2006. Or probably a little under that. I take those seriously because it always inspires me. It always inspires me to do more. And that first one in Ohio, that first national convention that I went to in Ohio was magnificent, because I was just blown away. And I think we all were. It was me and several friends, but we were all blown away. Like, wow, that's what's really out there, you know. That's what we could be. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I want to be like that person. Or I want to be like that person. Or I want to do this. I've read about this. Or I network with someone who's already in the industry, and he says he's involved in this. Those things shape your career and destiny.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we got a question from the viewers, or from a viewer. What was your very specific question? What was your favorite class, slash what was the class that where you realized, okay, this is it?
Okay, what was my favorite? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
What was my favorite class? My favorite class was probably um oh yeah, this is a piece of cake, and I haven't worked in. It's funny, I haven't worked in this field for a while, but thermodynamics,
Mm,
just the study of um, thermodynamics, solar panels, and solar like it was fascinating. It was so fascinating. I was so impressed with that class and
right.
the projects we did, and how, you know, you could use science and math and engineering and determine different things. Yeah, thermodynamics was one of my favorite classes, and I really loved, you know, the equations. The equations I still remember of solving problems. You know, uh, thermodynamics was by far my favorite class, and I'll say my least class was probably physics. Not a shock, right? But it all comes
Right.
back in circle. If you don't get exposed to, you know, some of the things you should be getting exposed to,
Right.
it bites you later. So
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we're almost at the end of our time. I'm going to ask you the I don't always end with this question, but when I can remember it, or when there's space left, really, I like to ask it. So what is it that you would want us to know that I don't even know to ask you about your work, your life? Like I wouldn't even think to ask you the question. But that's really useful for us to know.
um hmm what very good question.
Or your personal life. Sometimes people answer that personally. You know, whatever you think is important for people to know.
Okay, I wanted to, you know, really young, you know, I wanted to be in the NBA. You know,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I didn't make it. Obviously, I'm here.
yeah.
But sometimes, you know, a failure can turn into a success, right? Um, Also, another thing you should know is I failed many classes,
Yeah.
you know, but you know what the funny thing is? I never gave up. I
Mm,
think that's the most important takeaway is you might fail, and it's only a moment of time, but never giving up is the most important thing, because that will take you further, in life. And definitely never giving up has given me the opportunity to overcome many different challenges. So just because you might, fall or fail at one specific aspect doesn't mean that your journey is over. You should always continue to persevere and continue to work hard, and it will always pay off.
That's I can't think of a better spot to end on, and that is beautiful. Listen, I really appreciate your time. I mean, I'm always amazed at how generous everybody is in giving up their time for stuff like this. I really appreciate the time you've taken to kind of be with us, and even prior to this, you're kind of coming in and being so open to supporting our students, and SB's being so important, so open to supporting our students. It's just spectacular. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope everyone out there really enjoyed this production. And I look forward to more opportunities later to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna stay on top of you, even from the West Coast. Yeah. So so Jeffrey Fleurantin, Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, sitting on part of our nuclear stockpile, making sure things run smooth out there. Thank you all for being here. And all of these, of course, are on our Facebook page, the whole history of them. So you can go back and watch this one over and over again, as well as the ones we've done in the past. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks again, Jeffrey.